Welcome back to Auto Tech, where we explore the latest and greatest in the world of high-performance cars and bikes.
Triumph make, in my opinion, the best retro bikes on the market, and so if you're thinking about buying one, well, I'd wholeheartedly encourage it. But with 12 different models to choose from in their modern classics lineup, well, you might be wondering which one is best for you and how to best spend your money.
So in this video, we'll go through each of them, including their pros and cons, and I'll also tell you why I recently chose this one, which I bought a couple of months back.
Let's get stuck into the bikes.
Now, although they're not strictly Bonnevilles, I thought I'd start with a quick word on the 400 models, as they do sit as the sort of entry point into the modern classic lineup. Instead of the Bonneville Parallel Twin, they use Triumph's TR series single, and so while they are built upon a different platform, they do retain some of the image and some of the feel of the bigger bikes in the lineup. Road bias with the 17-inch wheels and a lower slung stance, whereas the Scrambler 400X sits a little bit taller, gets semi-knobbly tyres with a 19-inch front, and gets a bit more of an open riding position owing to the fact that you get those Scrambler-style handlebars.
Naturally, both are a great choice if you want a brand new Triumph Modern Classic but you're on a relatively tight budget. At £5,195 and £5,795 respectively, that's over £3,000 less than the next model up. And at 40 horsepower peak, they're also a great choice for anyone on an A2 license who wants something that has that sweet retro or newer rider. The modest curb weight of 170 kilograms on the Speed 400, well, that makes it really easy to manage. And for context, that's 46 kilograms less than the Speed Twin 900, so that's a massive difference.
I wouldn't just limit these two bikes though to just those on a budget or on an A2 license, because there's loads of fun to be had on them, even for more experienced riders who are maybe just looking for a second bike or a commuter. Personally, I loved the Speed 400 when I borrowed it for review, and I think I preferred the sort of road-biased handling and the lightweight agility. The Scrambler 400X is a fantastic bike as well.
Assuming you want a true Bonneville though, with their brilliant Bonneville Parallel Twin engine, then I reckon a good starting point would either be the T100 or the T120. Both are classically styled and I think are what most people would imagine when they hear the word Bonneville, with spoke wheels, longish mudguards, that classic tank shape, and loads of nice details in the way it's finished, with little nods back to the Bonnies of yesteryear. All combined, I think it makes for one of the best looking bikes on the entire motorcycle market, and personally, that was a huge reason as to why I recently bought one.
The key difference there, I think, between the T100 and the T120 is the engine, with the T100 getting the 900cc variant of the Bonneville Parallel Twin, whereas the T120 gets the 1200. Now the 900 makes 64 horsepower peak and 80 newton meters of peak torque, whereas the 1200 makes just shy of 80 horses and a big dollop of torque at 105 newton meters, super low in the rev range as well at 3,500 RPM. So it really does give you a lot of usable shove down low when you're out on the road. That beefy torquiness, the smooth feel, and also the very sweet note at the exhaust is exactly what I like about either version of the Bonnie engine. But for me, I think it's that extra 25 newton meters of peak torque that just made the 1200 too hard to resist. On top of that, you get a 5-speed box, and I think it's the same ratios in first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and it's just that extra sixth that acts as an overdrive, and so this is the bike that feels much more settled on the motorway at those kinds of speeds.
Now, of course, there is a trade-off, being the slightly bigger bike with the twin discs up front as well. The T120 weighs in a little heavier at 236 kilograms versus the 228 of the T100. Then there's also the price at just about $12,000 as opposed to about $9,500 for the T100. But what I will say is if you're riding two up or covering distance, or you just want the quicker bike under acceleration, then personally, I'd say the 1200 is well worth it. Either way though, both bikes offer a great blend of classic styling, a comfy and versatile riding position, and a soulful, torquey engine that's really satisfying to ride.
The only thing I will say about these two is that they're not necessarily the sharpest handling bikes, especially if you compare them to something with a bit more of a contemporary chassis design. They're more so built to be pleasant and balanced in the handling, and also they're built to look good. And so I do notice, hopping off some of the other press bikes that I borrowed back onto this bike, that it is fairly weighty and the steering is fairly slow and steady with the relaxed geometry, the oversized 18-inch front wheel, and look, it's definitely not like a bad handling bike. I don't think Triumph really make bad handling bikes. It's just a bit stable and steady. And so if you're coming from something like a naked or a sports bike and you're used to something a bit quicker turning, then realistically you're going to want to look at one of the Speed Twins.
Like the T100 and T120, these ones come in both a 900 and 1200cc flavour, with the Speed Twin 900 actually being the most affordable Bonneville powered bike in the lineup. This is another Bonneville that I've owned back when it was called the Street Twin, and it's a really easy bike to ride with a nice low seat height at 780mm, but also with the option to fit a low seat accessory, and that takes another 20mm off. So definitely a great choice for shorter riders. But for 2025, it's also had a bunch of upgrades which should make it more enjoyable to pretty much anyone. The styling has been made a little more modern, there's a much improved suspension, brakes have been upgraded too, and there's more tech with a digital display through which you can manage riding modes and cornering sensitive traction control and ABS, as well as the option to fit it with the connectivity module accessory if you want calls, messaging and turn-by-turn nav.
I'd say it's certainly more engaging to ride through corners than the equivalent T100, as I got plenty of chance to experience out on the press launch in Spain a couple of months back. Thing is though, in terms of spirited riding, I would always say the 900 is going to be a little bit limited by the fact that it can only make 64 horsepower peak, especially considering none of these bikes are particularly lightweight, and so
currently buy with a base model coming in at 12.5 grand and a top spec RS version at 14.5. Both get a quicker turning geometry, 17-inch cast wheels front and rear, and while the spec on the standard bike is decent, well, the RS gets Brembo brakes and Öhlins rear shocks for the best possible handling and ride. It also has a more aggressive riding position with a taller seat height and higher pegs, along with a comprehensive
continuation of the beautiful Thruxton, which was seen out with its final edition last year. Thing is though, both of the Speed Twin 1200s are available. That gives you a bit of an approximation of the Thruxton riding position, if not quite as low. That is probably a good thing as well, because the Thruxton wasn't particularly comfortable, and I think that was one of the factors that led to them killing it off. But yeah, perhaps still nice to have the option there if that riding position does suit you. But I think for me, I'd probably stick with the flat bars on a Speed Twin 1200 just for the extra versatility and all-day comfort that it gives you.
For the ultimate though, in spacious riding positions, a bike from the Bonneville Scrambler lineup would be, in my opinion, the ideal choice. Again, there's a 900 and a couple of 1200s getting increasingly flashy in spec as the prices climb. The Scrambler 900 is perhaps the least off-road capable and simplest in terms of tech and componentry, but it's still a great choice if you want that rugged Scrambler image, but just on a bit of a tighter budget. I think it's a great looking bike, especially in the matte green 190mm. That's lower than a lot of general street bikes, and so you don't necessarily have to balance on your tiptoes just to enjoy a bit of the Scrambler lifestyle.
Now, as with the Speed Twins, moving up to that, but on top of that, there's also a long list of chassis upgrades as well, with tubeless spoke wheels with a big 21-inch front, and also better suspension and better brakes. Now, the X model is intended to be fairly accessible in both stature and price, with an 820mm seat height and non-adjustable Marzocchi suspension and Nissin brakes that don't push the price up too much. It gets the same digital dash as the Speed Twins as well, and so this is a great one to look at if you want the extra grunt of the 1200, but you're mainly riding on the road.
The Scrambler 1200 XE though is the top dog, and I guess I would say equivalent to the Speed Twin 1200 RS. Brakes, for example, come from Brembo, there's fully adjustable suspension from Marzocchi, And the tech package offers more settings and customization through a more premium full TFT display. Thing is though, they've made it really quite tall to give it some serious off-road capability, but as a result, the seat height has shot up by 50mm versus the X, and that makes it 870mm in total. For a 230kg bike that is pretty lofty, probably too tall for a lot. You did take it off-road and ended up in a ditch. Honestly, when I reviewed them back to back, I wanted to like it more than the X because I loved that better finish, the look of the better components, and also that 175cm. I think, if I'm honest, I actually had a better time on the X, which was much easier, or I guess much less nerve-wracking to maneuver at lower speeds. Still, if you're on the particularly tall side and you want a bike that suits your dimensions, or you're serious...
The Bobber, for example, has a seat height of 690mm in the low position and is super laid back with the wide Bobber bars and also the mid-position foot pegs. Now, as you might expect, the big stability and style, and they are carving through corners, but it's got to be said, they've absolutely...
The Bobber is particularly cool looking with that small headlight, the 12-litre tank, through to the floating solo saddle and the hardtail inspired swing arm that neatly hides the modernity of a monoshock. It's such a nice design that when we recently ran a poll to make our best looking bikes of 2025 video, it ranked very highly at number 3 despite not having been updated for a good few years. So definitely one to consider if you'll only ever be riding solo and you like the cruiser or bobber image.
Thanks for joining us in this video. If you found this content engaging, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking insights. And remember, your comments are invaluable to us, so share your thoughts below, and may the wealth be with you.